Okay. I thought I'd do some updates. Just some. I've been looking around into Saurashtra Peninsula. Saurashtra, which is the head of the bird caused by the vortex weapon used on ancient Dwarka, as I've been talking about. Saurashtra means country of sun, which is interesting because I've also suggested at times that Gurnar is like the center of a galaxy where the Deccan Traps are like the galactic disk of the galaxy. Or sun, like a center of a solar system. Country of sun, like maybe literally country of sun, like the sun on the surface of the earth kind of thing is like the because it essentially extends down to the mantle. I've been talking about this. Malkernar from so like this for instance in 1980, Kayla et al. Proposed the reflectors based on data to be something of this nature, which goes down to 50 kilometers about and essentially to the Moho. But then this got updated recently and is suggested to be more of this nature. Here's Junagad, which is where Gurnar is. Here's Gurnar then, I assume. And so precisely at Gurnar, here's the Moho upper mantle. So like right there, underplated crust. So this is crust, the underplating of the crust, I guess. And it really looks like a galaxy. Like this is the arms outward with the bulge at the center. To a point where maybe it is aptly named to call it country of sun, like some type of large, massive structure that's crystalline like. I mean, it really is crystalline like. This hexagonal structure on top of or another inner hexagonal structure of a different material, where this is where the outer hexagon was around here. Inner hexagon is in here. So there's two hexagons. This thing is crystalline. These are 90 degrees, 90 degrees, 120 degrees, 120 degrees. Or maybe it's this one. This portion, it changes. It has so many nuances. So it's in Gurnar, is in the Saurashtra Peninsula, known as the country of the sun, maybe, which the sun being just Gurnar, maybe, and this country being Saurashtra, which is like conjoined polygonally, energetically as one unit, as if it is the country of Gurnar, just geologically, not based on like names or anything we've historically tied to it. Just geologically, it is. If I still have that open, the country of Gurnar, which is geologically like a star because of the bulge here. That is because of just the sheer mass here, which is a different material than the surrounding masses. It's just epic. So I've been looking into this region, so let's get into this. Click this, why not? Joint inversion for stress and fault orientations using focal mechanisms of earthquakes in the Saurashtra Horst, a part of stable continental region of India, and source parameter estimation. So Horst again, Horst graben, Horst is the uplifted in apparent appearance, at least, graben having like some sort of fault line that shows a drop in it, and so it becomes known as a Horst graben. So Saurashtra as a whole is known as a Horst with adjacent graben of Cash, Kutch, which is still part of Gujarat, but not part of Saurashtra. So Kutch and Saurashtra, geologically separated and connected by the Shaligram feature here, by the way. Maybe I can find that real quick. Also, at some point I'm not going to be able to find the things I'm talking about easily. Shaligram. What was that? It's a little concerning. So chakras, shaligrams, because of the storm which passed through this region, came up through here. So I've been realizing the storm really lingered here and just put winds in this direction as it inflowed into this region, into these openings it was carving, which is why there's this like ring of these features at the boundary where the energy from the storm moving through this region is then going down into the earth like a river flowing down, just falling down into the crevices to basically reach the mantle where it punctured the mantle, which then caused an upwelling of the mantle as this material of ether, subtle energy, which is like sand in comparison to a planet. So it's just subtle particles, like a grain of sand next to a planet. Just a bunch of grains of sand flowing around these larger like systems that are more conglomerated and more stable, and so it just flows through into this opening this downwelling location, and then it punctures it, at which point then they begin to exchange where the mantle comes out and like bubbling in like a bottle of water bubbling in is the mantle's replacement of the ether energy from the storm. So it's sitting here for a long time, feeding in, and then it starts to move over here at some point. I think it really sat here for a while, relatively speaking, in terms of like, this is all considered to be from like 550 million years ago to present, just about, in terms of the time frame of this, where most of it is until about 1 million years ago. But so the storm low like started around 550 million years. Also, this sink over here, I put sink, this was Precambrian mountain range. So this is real interesting. I gotta think about this more in terms of like why there's no evidence of this storm that I'm finding, like date wise. Because essentially it would make more sense in my mind that this would be like 100 million, maybe. Or at least a range, like maybe there was a mountain range, and so in the same way. So for sure, it makes sense to me that they're, like, first of all, in the same way as Mount Grenard. Like where is it? This one. If like water is kind of running down through these layers and gets to this region, it's gonna like flow down, kind of like down the gravitational well, like almost like a special general relativity like way of viewing things is present in this, where like the current, because there was a mountain range, not Gurnar, but the Ara Valley mountain range here. Ara Valley orogeny was present like 1.5 billion years radiometric dating. 1 second. I guess whatever. There's a garbage truck. Pardon me. uh, which is nice, obviously. Would be nice to continue to. We gotta figure out a better way, though. I feel bad that someone's out there picking up the trash. It's not really right. There's gotta be a better way. At least a distribution where people are like, trash needs picked up. Come on, and like you just physically see like this region needs trash picked up, and you're within the region as one of the members of the community, and so like go to the place, be like, oh, I'm gonna take one of those things, and they're like, okay, we trust you because you've been here before, or we don't trust you, so we're gonna go with you. You're coming with us. Thanks for the help. You can learn, and then just like distribute the knowledge and the efforts between everyone while we also figure out like a better way of doing things. Because I just feel bad. It fucking sucks, especially because I have no jobs right now, and I'm just leeching off my parents because they let me. While I research things that no one cares about, even though it's fucking interesting. They don't want to care about it because it's too world changing, worldview changing, threatening, all the things. All the things and the irony of it all, and all the things, just all the things. And the irony of it all again. Okay. But so I think it stayed here for much longer, and we'll go into why. Let's just go back to here. Is considered a horse bounded by 3 failed rifts. The Cache Rift in the north, which is related to when the doom shape, this storm, this vortex was moving. This is my best guess of the trail it took. It went this way. It really lingered here at this point, and then it kind of moved over here and like locked in energetically, just like locked in the side of this structure. And for some reason that like created like the eye of the storm was there, so it just allowed for like a more calm location under it. I don't know. That's kind of what I'm thinking, something of that nature, or it just uplifted more, because there is uplifting here. There's like a rocky terrain structure there. But I think it sat there for just like, it makes sense from the occurrence that it was there. Although this doesn't quite. This, I guess, kind of makes sense. I think it was initially wrapping around and out, and then started to carve out like this. And then, like, I feel like what happens is it literally does something of this nature, but then it runs into a point where it can no longer continue, like, inserting energy in a direction, and the resistance just builds and builds and builds until the storm itself was like, okay, it then applied a pressure in this way more so, and in so doing, it moved off of the bump that it was stuck on, kind of, while it was sending currents this way. I do think it was doing this. Like, this structure here doesn't really make sense, except for from a current coming up to a sink. Then it makes sense. When it's many currents coming from a like mountain range, like the more traditional viewpoint where we just say it's like a mountain range and this is water draining off of it, like it doesn't really make sense that it would have this structure. It's very odd. I didn't just draw this. This is literally in the terrain. I think it's very odd. It comes off here, comes across, and it just reaches down to this, reaches down, reaches down, reaches down, and just comes off of this like main thread in, and also a secondary one that fills down here. So it has, and then this current's wrapped around this structure, participating in its creation. Like this even has a smiley face. Oh my god, what is this? I probably talked about this before. I must have noticed this because I've definitely talked about it, like generally speaking. But then the currents come over to the sink and go in, and maybe they just, like in the same way as Mount Grenard, they just go to the sink of the mountain chain and sink down in, and maybe just don't show evidence of the time. So I'm gonna get into that. Like the dates don't, everything else, the dates are generally sensical. Did I just close that? Like in terms of what I describe, it have to have occurred. Like like the sequence, like up here is like 160 million years. Down here is more in the 66 million years. Over here, maybe, I haven't looked exactly, but maybe this is more in like the 200 to maybe even like 500 million years, because it really was occurring, I believe, at the time when Dwarka was attacked, which really goes back to the Cambrian explosion, which was really a mass dying that began to occur when this vortex weapon was used. And also creation of like seemingly living things, and I'm still not completely sure what to make of them. Whether they lived in some other plane of time, in some other dimension of time, where their perception really was much more like our radiometric dating suggests, than that it was more of a supernova, like Earth's supernova, rapidly expanding to a larger radius by fracturing between the single landmass and then filling the space with underlying mantle material, while space itself filled in to like fill the space of the Earth with enough of a like void within it to form a stable particle, relatively speaking. That probably is a livable atmosphere in some way. It's very dense. Maybe it's an atmosphere of like subtle ether energy. They're just breathing in straight prana in the inner earth. It's so dense that it's like it's their air. That would be crazy. Okay. So there's 3 rifts, failed rifts. That one, the Cambay rift to the east, which is along the spine, like the neck spine, the neck up from the spine through the head, like along that portion. I should have ate something. And then a 3rd rift, the Narmada rift, along the south boundary. And then also this region, I guess, I don't know why they don't mention that. Let's just download. I already have it, but it's easier than figuring out where it is. Okay, so here's the image. I really went through this paper. I took notes, so let's go through the notes. And maybe I'll zoom in. Maybe I'll move me over here. Okay. So this is Camera et al. Again, this paper that I read the name of earlier. From Springer, published 2021. Kindly retrieved from researchgate.net. Okay, so this is a very focused on earthquakes. This paper is essentially studying the underlying structure of Saurashtra based on earthquakes. And they point out that the earthquakes are highly located in these two locations. Earthquakes are clustered in two groups, one in the northern part near Jamnagar region, and the other in the southern part near Talala region. Talala. So Jamnagar is over here somewhere. Jamnagar. There it is. Okay, right there. Lots of earthquakes there. And then, I believe, even more earthquakes here. Talala, which is just to the west of Gurnar. Interesting. Interesting. If we pull up some, let's go to some of these maps I've made. Maybe here. This is just Gurnar. I need more like this, but where is it? Well, dudes, yeah. Probably here. Here we go. Here we go. Okay, let's go to this one. Maybe. Well, that seems good. Alright. There's the chakras. So the Doom's shape storm comes in this way, creating these chakras between the Kutch and Saurashtra basins, which are basically polygons. Like the basin is surrounded by a polygonal boundary, like supporting wall to the basin. That kind of everything is energetically resting upon to a degree. Not completely, but to a degree. So let's continue with the paper though. Let's just keep going. Oh yeah, that's right. So I was trying to look over here. Here's Jamnagar here. I believe it's right there. Which maybe is related to the like just that there was currents coming across here. And it's like at the beginning. So maybe it really messed with the polygonal support structure in that region more so than like the rest of it, to maybe make that region kind of like Los Angeles, like not having the polygonal support structure in the same way as the surrounding region. Like if I go to portal. So the reason I said Los Angeles is I was just watching a video and this where I was talking about this boundary wall, and I was mentioning how the boundary wall is kind of missing here, like because the current came across here, that cut across, pretty much just came right across this way. Or it went this way. I haven't really thought about it. I'm just noticing this. This is kind of odd. Like it really struggled there, and then it even goes up there, maybe? I don't know. I don't want to get stuck on that. But maybe there's something of that nature going on here. It's a little harder to tell around here because it's bigger blocks. Like maybe it's pertaining to something of that nature. Or because of this structure, there's a lot of like flows through the region. So let's just keep going. So the Jamnagar, this region, up here, this region has reverse fault characterization, meaning reverse faulting this way, where because it's the graben, or towards the graben, it's probably like falling downwards, I assume. I didn't really figure out which one's going up, which one's going down. Maybe because it's near the polygon wall, it's more supported and the surroundings are kind of falling down a little more than, like, it's really not visible very well here, which is it's interesting, but I assume it has a similar polygonal wall that's supporting it more like this. That's just not visible in this data because it's maybe not at the same elevation. But something's going on here where the polygonal wall maybe is just not quite the same. Or it's supporting this, but over here starting to fall in a bit. Because essentially Gurnar is like it's almost like a dress. Gurnar wears a dress of the basalts of the Deccan Traps of Saurashtra Peninsula, and they kind of hang down, but they're supported at the edge by a polygonal wall to a degree that doesn't seem to be visible very well here, although maybe this is, like, that's probably part of it. So maybe that's related to why that region has earthquakes, because there's this little divot there. I don't know what to make of that. Looks like that might have connected across right up to, oh, right up to this. So it's like energy flows down through here, maybe down to the spiral. So it's like when this storm was passing through, initially this is maybe this polygon that's like got flows up here, but then it created a wall, like the currents are coming through of ether, but they're pushing material. It's hard to say because there's also, this is where the currents flowed from, out of the mantle. So maybe just like as the ether is trying to get in there, it also goes past it. This for sure has a bunch of little ether energies trying to get into that plug that are just drilling in the side of it, around it. So it was probably more able to get in when it was initially creating these like spaces in the mantle that was outflowing. One of which appears to have come from the energy, the currents that were able to flow to the tip of Gujarat, Saurashtra, over here. Like it even looks like it has those little lake type structures littering it more so than the rest of Saurashtra. Let's see. Like over here, that's okay. We need labels gone. Like they're up here where the currents were flowing to a degree, but they're more like within the currents. These ones are more little divots, like up here. Here, maybe even where the currents were flowing over top the polygon and then into the polygon. Which is probably what this is over top the polygon, over top it, and then into it, the polygon, which was really here probably. Although these could all just be like results, I don't know, at this point. But then the currents couldn't get to it from the same route, so they started to come through Gujarat. As the storm's coming this way, it stops here, maybe here even, maybe like right here. Because this is where the chakras are. Maybe these are the chakras. Oh shit. This. And this. Like maybe energetically beneath the surface. Or more like these two right here. So there's energy coming this way, getting stuck along this boundary that then flows inward, I guess, and until the mounds form enough where it just can't. Flowing in that way, wrapping around, maybe cutting through here to a bit, but also creating a eddy here underneath the surface that is counter to a surface eddy that's causing an upwelling, I guess, or like maybe not upwelling, an accumulation of material here to make these like two chakras. Maybe these two really look like the chakras, though, even though they're not at the same angle that the chakras are. They just look like they would be the ones. if anything is involved in this shallogram shape of these chakras here. Because there was a vortex going on here. This current's coming in this way, wrapping down over this way, but also apparently coming this way, up through, along this, and just stuck in this region, which is probably where the storm generally was initially. Because here's this region. And then also this Earth. Okay, let's keep going. Let's keep going. Saurashtra was tectonically stable during the quaternary, which is 2.58 to million years ago to present, according to radiometric dating. Okay, I skipped one. This one is reverse faulting characterization. So here there's like an up-down motion. Talala down here is a side-to-side motion. So down here we similarly have these. I'm not sure why it would be focused there, like specifically there. But there are suggestions in this region of like a. I really should just put something in my stomach. So that it has like vortices going on here because of the currents, which I've gone into enough. Just the currents causing Gurnar. Some of which flowed down here, hit this wall, branched off this way. Or this wall, came down through here, sorry. Through here, hit here, this polygonal boundary. This also built up a mass here, so it built a wall, maybe even like a ramp. So an upslope that then caused it to like bend off the sides and come over this way, and it hit like resistance of material here. So I guess the storm, that's probably related to that, because the storm is sending energy down this way that's then being caused to like flow this way underneath the surface. Anything coming down through like here is generally wrapping around here, maybe. I presume it makes it over to this region. It manages to get across here. Maybe it even goes up over and into. Not really. No potholing type structures quite the same. Like there's maybe to a degree, but these are rocks. These are not potholes. These are mounds of material. This region's real interesting. Okay, so let me go back. Or maybe just go on. Earthquakes in the region tend to cluster in the two locations, have been tied to summer monsoon rainfall, surface water supply to the depths of the earth, where earthquake frequencies increase during and in the months following the monsoon season. This I found real interesting. So like maybe on the surface the rainwater like goes down and hits these mounds that then causes it to physically flow like in this direction, which then for some reason energetically Jamnagar is the place showing the most like earthquakes concentrated at it from the rainwater that's influenced by the underlying surface. And over here also maybe it's caused to flow here. I'm not sure. Is that where Talala like directly under Gurnar, almost exactly under Gurnar, which probably has a relationship to Gurnar feeding energy this way along this wall. Maybe at some point in the process that there was some energy flowing like that way specifically, some relationship of energy flows. This region, this hard to say. But maybe that, if anything, from this magnetic anomaly map, which is what this is. Hard to say. Okay, let's keep going. The peninsula stratigraphy. This is good to know. At the base is Precambrian rock, so like before we moved from Mars, probably, according to things I've said in the past. And that basement rock covered in Mesozoic sedimentation. So there was a period when the Saurashtra Peninsula was getting covered in not basaltic lava flows, but in deposits of sedimentation. So like if there's a storm here that's sending currents through this way, and as it's moving down here, even sending like currents of like sediments, depositing them in this region that aren't yet currents of basaltic flows emerging from fractures in the earth, then like it would make sense that there would be a period of initial sedimentation leading up to the actual basaltic outflow of the Deccan Traps when the Earth supernovaed, when like the rapid phase of the Earth supernova began. And then again, thin layers of sediments from more recent times. And then also the peninsula has intrusions. So that's generally what's described in this region, maybe somewhere in here. Just talking about the peninsula historically. Earthquakes within the Saurashtra horse tend to be shallower, 0 to 5 kilometers depth. Swarm type events. So within the horse, they tend to be only 0 to 5 kilometer depth, whereas by comparison, 35 to 40 kilometer depths in the adjacent Kutch region, which is basin here, versus here, 0 to 5 kilometer depth earthquake swarms tend to occur here, 35 to 40 kilometer depth here. Now, if we consider that this is where the basaltic outflows occurred, so that it's almost like upside down world. Not to say upside down world, but it's like where the energy from the bottom layers were able to reach the top to a point maybe where like the basaltic energies are just more influential. I don't know. Something to do with that there was a large igneous province here, and there was not really here. Like there's some here, but also to do with that there's this puncture hole in the mantle that we're approaching over here. Like here's the Kutch Basin, here's the Saurashtra Basin. So maybe because there's an outflow coming this way, maybe even wrapping around here and in, coming in underneath the surface like that, maybe, I don't know. And also this way, being pulled by the storm this way, I don't know. To essentially have a mound at the neck region over here. Over here, which I've pointed out in the past, there's an arrow here where the currents flowed. So maybe that there is a mound here generally encouraged basaltic flows this way after the mound was building up. Like once the mound built up, then the basaltic flows started to flow in more as precisely as we see them as things like, and then also this current flowing this way, subtle energies wrapping around here, going up underneath. Maybe as this current's coming across, it ran into resistance from that, which then played into the Barda Hills and also Alec Hills here. and the location of Osam Hills relating to the current coming in from here. Again, that mound, which then led to a swelling down this way where the energy collides with the wall and then comes back the way it came, but it doesn't collide with it. It flows along the side of it in the opposite direction, but especially wrapping into Gurnar, which is where faults in the Saurashtra Peninsula are opening. Like there's an opening literally flowing this way and this way that directly align with Gurnar, making it a node in these fault lines. Because that's where as this storm ripped open the mantle and caused an upwelling of mantle, it then pressured against, like as it flowed outward, it also pressured upward, which then carved a pathway out to the basin of Saurashtra Peninsula, and then began to upwell here more so than elsewhere, and the storm itself then just distributed it across the surface out here. And also there's fractures going on out here, maybe from the storm also, I'm not completely sure. Okay, what else? So that's interesting, maybe related to that type of stuff. Fluvial systems of southern Saurashtra show the western region prefers northeast, southwest to north-northeast. So western region, which is where Gurnar is, north-northeast, south-southwest. I'm not sure why it draws it not north-northeast. Like, this is not really north-northeast. I'd call it east-northeast, maybe. It's more east than north. But anyway, maybe just based on the angle. Like this looks like it's this is across 21 degrees, 22. I don't know. It's interesting that it comes to a tip at a within the Earth's, like, what is that, latitude or longitude? Oh dear God, whatever it is, I always have to look it up. Which one's which? Okay. So back to this. So it's initially northeast, southwest, let's say over here, northeast, southwest, and then in the center region, predominantly east-west, and then the eastern region, northeast, southwest again, to northwest, southeast. So essentially vibrating off of this trajectory from generally over here, apparently. I don't know. Although these fault lines don't really match with the description. That's what the paper said. I'm not sure if this is the best image to represent what the paper was getting at. But it is from the paper, so here's another one. This paper. Structure and evolution of Saurashtra Arch in the Kutch Saurashtra deep water area. So over here, so maybe like we were just talking about how this storm is sending energy down through here and then causing it to wrap up this way. Maybe some of it was just kept going over top. Like it just ramped, and in so doing created a more surface structure of the Saurashtra Arch. Or divot, I'm not sure if it's how exactly this is structured. I think it's filled, perhaps. It might be filled with the sediment. One of the regions around here is like a divot that's just filled with the later sediment for some reason. That might be this Narmada fault, though. Okay. Extending through and outward from Gujarat. So it also through. I'm not sure if that's where it starts. Let's look at the map. If there's any. Not much suggestion there of where exactly it starts because these are not even the same. It's kind of not precise. That's okay. Essentially, though, there's an arc here that's related to the process. That's probably related to that there was, again, this vortex here. Maybe let's just get the labeled. Current here flowing this way, creating a vortex, but also just creating a current that's flowing this way. That just continued through, like maybe there or somewhere, in some way creating the Saurashtra arch by just continuing out into the newly developing ocean bed. Ocean floor age crustal map. Pretty much which was forming at that time. Older, newer. It probably moved outward, projected from this region, moved outward until it reached like a underneath the crust until it reached a location where it could upwell, and then it upwelled, but then it filled in that upwelling with like material. So then it moved a little further. The next bit of the current moved further, and then it upwelled and just continued to fill in an arch in the general direction underneath the surface that is moving until it can upwell. And as it's doing that, the Earth itself is doing the same thing by putting out mantle material that then upwells at the boundary that then causes this kind of thing. So it's like maybe that makes sense, honestly, as it's coming underneath at the boundary between the two layers, like two continents, and then it's upwelling there. But then when it upwells, it essentially fills the region, so new pressure pushes the systems a little bit more apart. Until then, it upwells a new layer in between those, and it just keeps filling in new layers between along some fracture line like this, while the undercurrent is coming from underneath the continents, upwelling outward to fill the space until essentially this region was formed. And so that would kind of match with the Saurashtra arch there, and it protruding out there. This region I've generally called a. I believe this is caused by the storm's arm. That's what I've said in the past. Like the storm itself discharged maybe when Gurnar was discharged here. When this discharge occurred into Gurnar, that an arm of the storm was here and just imprinted itself there. I'm not completely sure. It's for sure a phi ratio, so like or approximate approaching such a phi ratio curvature as to like be like, oh, it's a phi ratio. Okay, so next thing, prominent conductive anomalies in the region detected. This is interesting. The first coinciding with the Saurashtra Horst and Kutch offshore graben, and the second over the Saurashtra depression conductive anomaly in figure 5A. So here's this paper. Regional conductance map of Saurashtra and surrounding regions. This I found really exciting. Regional conductance map. Then we can turn this one. Different periodicities. I'm not quite sure what that all means. The different times. It's relating to how the energy is propagating through at different energies, I guess. So it does produce different flows, but generally speaking, current going this way, up that way, that kind of matches with the things we were just talking about. This matches pretty well. And then even that we see coming back that way, those don't really make complete sense. Any sense. These make more sense. These ones and these ones make more sense with the things I've generally described, like that there's this back current, but also generally a current this way. So I could see how maybe like under the layers, like as it first occurred, maybe it flowed more uniformly across. But like over time, the current started to have more structure to this region and be limited to smaller channels, which then caused vortices. Plus, there's an upwelling of energy along the fault line. Which was formed in the process. Okay, let's turn this back. I found this interesting. This one here, bathymetry map of Saurashtra and the surrounding regions. I'm not sure what this is about. B, okay, this one's bathymetry. Just here. Okay, that one's legitimately bad. But then B, real induction arrows for period 26 minutes corresponding to the thin sheet model, depicting lateral variations due to seawater of variable depth. This one, interestingly, is exactly where the doom shape approached and then discharged into this region. Right there, I believe, is right there, or it's real close. That one might be more up here, where it perhaps lingered, like until it got over this hill. I think it was up by Chogat and Chamardi, two locations here, for a time until it could like make it over here, and then it discharged like massively, but it like jumped from there to there. So it may not have complete like exactness to this, but it seems suggestive to be related. This is interesting. So there's a conductive map. So I was thinking, because there's a current cutting across here, if we go back to here again, a current cutting across here, that maybe that current that physically exited from Gujarat, from Saurashtra, then maybe essentially created like a void. It's not a void, but like a structure that had a lot of current flowing through it. It had a lot of current flowing through it, and as a result, it still has a lot of current flowing through it, so it's conductive, maybe. That's kind of what I was thinking, like that there is this there. I'm not sure where the other one is. Like, I couldn't quite pinpoint what they were referring to, because they say the first coinciding, I'm just quoting them pretty much, coinciding with Saurashtra Horst and Kutch offshore graben. Elongated anomaly coincides with, yeah, like they don't even say first. They really don't point to an anomaly up here. Maybe that. I don't know. I don't know if that's what the first one is. A. I guess these are all anomalies, and this one's just really prominent. This seems to be reminiscent, though, of this. So there's an offshore anomaly here. Actually, that's where Shiva Crater is, probably. That didn't occur to me. That latitude nodes. I don't know what that means. So it's at around, presumably it's here, right here. Around 70, 19, a little less than 70, a little more than 19. Shiva Crater. Let's see. A little more than 70, a little less than 19. A little more than 70, like here, a little less than 19, like here. I mean, it's pretty much the Shiva Crater location. So it's probably, I mean, it can't be not associated with the Shiva Crater. Let's see if they have any. No, crater. And whether or not that was known at the time of this paper. I think this is 2012. Yeah. And I don't even think it's officially considered a real crater at this point. Claim. So they haven't claimed. They won't acknowledge it because it's too big. It's just too big. They're like, but it's too big. We can't explain that. It's not a crater. Dude, could you imagine if there was a crater that size? Oh, it's not a crater because we can't explain it. Because we think they're craters when they're not even craters in the first place. That's the problem. They're not even craters in the first place. Look, guys, let me show you. Nova, I'm going fast, but I assure you they're generally here. I might be not exactly overtop them. Nova, 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 Nova. Lots of Novas also. Nova. Like, these structures are all over the earth. Massive as fuck. They're not impact craters. Like, here's Hudson Bay. It's not even visible. It's probably, I think that one predates. It's Precambrian. But so for there to be like something that doesn't even show the nova here, and for that still to be too big to acknowledge by science, it just shows like the lack of awareness of the sheer quantity of these events and the scope and scale. I mean, same irony of it all. I know. I know people who understand better than me things about things that I'm not even gonna talk about because I can't. Because I don't know about those things, whatever they may be. All I can know is that I don't know. Also, a similar conductivity anomaly, so they pointed out there's another one down here. So I just kind of threw that in here. There's that link to that paper. Download PDF. Cool. Download it again. Just generally, I did not read this one very much. I just found this image. I was like, alright, that one is comprehensible. They're saying there's anomalies here, probably. But it was more just to point it out than to actually say anything about it specifically. And also because they said associated with the Marion hotspot. So this one generally is associated with this region. I'm not sure exactly. The Saurashtra region is generally associated with the Réunion hotspot. So like whereas the Marion hotspot is associated with the tip of India down here. So there's two hotspots, which are really probably again like the Réunion hotspot is not the cause of the Deccan traps. It's a side effect of this process. It's one of the outcomes of this process. It's not the cause of the Deccan traps. It's just the currents flowed out through this way, just like that. And it probably, this might even connect to Réunion, I'm not sure. Réunion hotspot. Like we can probably see visibly here energetically where it connected. Like this region's all messed up. I guess it's just got that smiley face. Nope. But it generally like this cuts across. So this probably cut across to like here, and then but this was closed up. So this was up here also. Maybe it cut directly here into this region. Flowed through out into the Mediterranean. But in the process, like the energy's flowing. Like the mantle is physically propagating throughout the earth, flowing like that, and as it flows it's physically causing like these blue regions and piles along the way where the currents flowed blue regions because it's cutting into just like a river, it's cutting into the earth. But then where they flowed along and created piles are the piles. But so they maybe left the Saurashtra Peninsula. I feel like they went up this way. So maybe they went through Saurashtra, though, up this way and out this way. Also, anything coming out here, but along this propagation path. And maybe that influenced the Réunion hotspot. Let's look at this. I think it must just go back there and be visible in the terrain itself. Réunion. There it is. Crazy. Crazy. Wait, where is this from? Like, could this be just up here? And this down, like, this way? Initially forming and then break off for some reason. Like, it formed along the edge, but it just couldn't keep it along the edge, so it broke it off. Because the currents are flowing out that way to fill in underneath, and they just pulled that chunk along with it, and it got separated. Whereas the portion over here is not quite as separated. It wasn't on this side of the fracture. In order to get over here, it seems maybe related. Like, this fault is where energy currents cutting across this way are coming out from and cutting across this way. Like, they collide and just upwell along the boundary here initially, but then they start to fill in by the upwelling and just begin to spread the earth. Okay, what else? The name Saurashtra is considered to have several possible meanings. 100, Sau means 100, Rashtra meaning languages. In one instance, some scholars believe it to be derived. This is from Wikipedia, pretty much. This stuff here, these two are just Wikipedia. Some scholars believe it to be derived from Sora, meaning sun, and Rashtra, meaning country, or the country of the sun. So I kind of talked about that already. Known by Ptolemy as Saurashtrine. Sora meaning sun, strine, I'm not sure. Let's see if that brings anything up. I don't know. Something sun related, maybe country also. Or just good country. I don't know what this was either. Prakrit name of Sorath. Okay, Saurashtra is bounded. This back to this paper, I think. One of these that I quoted. Bounded by the Gulf of, or actually no, maybe this might actually be from Wikipedia too. Gulf of Kutch and Gulf of Cambay, between the apex of the Gulf, and then it said waste tracts, half salt marsh. So there's like a salt marsh and half sandy desert stretch inland towards each other. So I'm not sure if they're talking about this region. So like this is a salt marsh and this is a sandy desert, or if like this is the sandy desert and this is the also part of the salt marsh. I'm not sure. Because they say from here, from Cambay to Kutch, from the apex. Maybe Cambay technically is considered to go up to there. I'm not sure. But they may also be talking about this stretch. I don't know. Just thought it was interesting enough that I just mentioned that concept there. North of the Saurashtra Horst is the Kutch Graben, where west of the Deccan Trap Formation within it are sag fill segments. West of Deccan Traps, a Deccan Trap Formation within the Kutch region here. Deccan Traps are like here. Over here to this side, sag fill sediments, so sediments from sagging, I guess, that were then filled. Like it's said, the layer drooped to the side, and sediments were deposited there to then fill the basin, I guess, of this region, because it still had a sort of polygonal support structure to make it still kind of polygonal, maybe. I'm not sure exactly. But then that occurred later on after 66. So, like, once the earth started to expand, then it started to sag. Like, before then, it was supported. But then building up into it, the storms moving across. This one is from around 160. The first one, Patcham Islands. These are considered islands because they're like separated land masses in a way. These islands, even though they're here, like they're kind of connected to the landmass. This one's more island-like-ish, but really, like, it's still, they're all connected to the landmass effectively enough where, like, there's a road here, there's a town here, etc. Like, there's habitation on the surrounding, making it not quite an island, but it's an island arc. It's considered an island arc to have formed in this time frame. So I kind of talked about that as being from the doom shape when it was up here. So that essentially, because we can say these are 160 to 100 million years ago, radiometric dating, according to radiometric dating, then this occurred for a while, and then it moved over here. And as it's moving over here, it's carving around these things and building the masses, presumably, by the current that is coming through this way. And it moves over and carves the islands, and then it comes through this way. Maybe around 100 million. But it seems like it even just pre-carved a path for it to go, and then it went the path once the path was like of least resistance existed around it. It like carved the path and then went through it. And then it sat there at this boundary for a while and maybe created like a salty aspect to this side relating to the ocean, maybe. And just like a sandy region over here. I don't know. But so those islands kind of they kind of fit pretty well, and not really problematic, essentially. And when the storm moved from ancient Dwarka, upon it being attacked by a vortex weapon, it formed the Great Ran of Kutch, which is what we've been talking about up here, where these 4 islands are. And maybe this is drawn with deeper waters for a reason, I'm not sure. But it formed this region when this is me, obviously, when the storm when the mantle was punctured beneath Tharparkar, which is this region, the storm moved southward. So it began to move this way. First image from this YouTube video.
We have the
Mahesh Thakar, Professor Doctor Tectonics of Kutch Paleo Rift Basin here. As the storm moved, it carved through the little ran of Kutch, where it sat at the boundary of the polygonal structures and filled the space between with currents. This caused the Shaligram chakras to form between the tortoise head of Kutch and Saurashtra. So this is also from that same video, which I link again because I felt bad because it looks like maybe I put this over top it. But like turtle, totally looks like a turtle. I concur. Let's remove this. There's the eyeball, the head, maybe some feet, shell, maybe a back foot, back feet. Maybe these are not feet, but enough like a turtle for it to like be generally considered a turtle. And I thought that was interesting because that's when I started to be like, that actually matches with like the concept that like as this occurred, it's strongly suggestive that the storm travel was slow in this region where the tortoise was. It was very slow moving through this region. La la la, just especially here, then it starts to pick up speed. Then maybe it gets stuck here, I think. I do think for some reason it just lodges itself over topless. And just feeds in this way. Like we see over here, we don't see these like inlet channels, these long like tab structures that just go along the length. They're much more this way, suggestive that once the storm moved, it moved like over here, like maybe here, and just pushed a mound here, and that wasn't actually sitting there, but it was more like here, right? Because there does look to be even like a sort of eye structure to this region, and here, down here, like maybe it kind of was sitting here over top this region rather than there. As it carved like openings, and then once the opening, it could then like travel through it, and then it moved over here and started to carve the back of the tortoise by cutting through Saurashtra and Kutch and creating the Gulf of Kutch and this sand structure. So it makes sense like that happened early on, and then the Deccan traps didn't happen until 66 million years, which was very rapid. So maybe the second half, once it passes, once this passed, it very quickly moved like rapidly down here, maybe, and then discharged. And flew. It flew through this region like a bird. Where over here, it was like resting on the ground like a tortoise, moving slow and steady. As the storm traveled from ancient Dwarka through to the end of the Great Ran of Kutch, it was filling the inner earth with subtle energy, causing it to swell from within. The storm was not forced away until, I'm not sure about this, until interior pressures began to reach the limits of the storm's potential. That makes sense though, like it's almost like it attached, but then so it like held it in place, but then once the energy was like filling the earth, it no longer had like that attachment. It was like a temporary energetic exchange until they balanced enough where then it released it down this way, but rapidly down this way, like ejected it. Ejected it. I was like, did it eject it? Like a supernova type 1A, maybe? I don't know. Freaking ejected the particle from the Earth itself, where it was attached to it through this polygon. As the storm moves into Saurashtra, it moves more rapidly through the region, flying like a bird in comparison to the slow and steady travel through Kutch. It burned and scarred the land with its energy, but did not create marshlands in the same manner, so that to me makes sense. Because I was like, why are there not marshlands? It must have just been like the material, but it might have just been the time, like not enough time. It flew over the region to like create that. And then an earthquake around 200 years ago struck the Kutch region. This is from that YouTube video this one. Struck the region, causing a uplift 6 meters along a 90-kilometer length and 16 kilometers width stretch, leading to drastic changes in the region. So apparently there used to be, this is Corey Creek here I believe, and it used to connect through this region to over here, maybe to maybe here, just physically connect through, and then this earthquake caused this uplift along this whole stretch, presumably, and then it just stopped. It no longer connected through, and as a result, like a fort, a base, some sort of habitation that was in this region just got screwed over completely by it 200 years ago. So I noticed that is, interestingly, maybe right here. Like here's Corey Creek, probably the very first one, generally speaking, there. So it looks very, very associated to that. An uplifting there of 6 meters along this, even a polygonal shape uplift, which is real interesting. So it may be that internal pressures from the mantle puncture hole, that the emissions, is this emissions or is this just pressed in? I think it's emissions that are then pressed in also, causing the shape, but also the emissions causing the shape. So like it's pressing in maybe, and in so doing, like there's earthquakes over here that are then kind of just putting material this way, that at some point this structure met so much resistance here that it physically upwelled along a polygonal boundary, creating a polygonal boundary. So let me just make sure I set everything. Yeah. Oh yeah, Air Valley. Then it comes to now the anomaly. It really is Air Valley trend. Like, why is it? I think let's Google this. Geology. An eroded stub of ancient mountains is believed to be the oldest range of fold mountains in India. Dates back to times when the Indian plate was separated from the Eurasian plate by an ocean. Well, that's not quite the dates here. It consists of two main sequences formed in the Proterozoic, which around initially during passive rifting 2.5 to 2 billion years ago, according to radiometric dating. So this is when we were not here. This is when the Earth was undergoing a supernova, making it Venus-like because it was Mercury-like. Earth used to be Mercury-like, then was Venus-like because it's supernovaed, which caused the Air Valley mountain range orogeny, a similar process at least, where Earth used to be like Mercury. Maybe not exactly is Mercury in the past, but used to be like it. Probably is in the past, I'm not gonna lie, but besides the point. Then became Venus-like, and then is now Earth-like after us. But the Venus-like step took like a planetary supernova, where this one took a radioactive decay supernova. It's probably a different type of supernova. It's just not the same, where it wasn't fire and brimstone like the Venus supernova, but it was more water-based. Although with a lot of volcanism involved and magma emissions and like a lot, but it wasn't only that. It had water, it had ether, things to keep it cool enough under the surface enough to not just be like gone or killed all of humanity while we were actually there. Okay. But this one does like and then during 1.9 to 1.6 billion years, the earliest most recent activity in this region that I could find maybe is that is around this one. It was one. I was thinking 1 billion years. I was reading other papers. I wasn't just reading Wikipedia. Let's look at this though. Shiv Puri. Most recent geological activity, our Valley trend. Deccan Trap. Down there. That makes sense that it's only there if it's going to be anywhere. Is at the very tail of the storm. They don't have dates. Oh my god, it's just filled with particles. that kind of particles. That. That. I even have a little golf ball in that one. Yeah, why not? Okay, let's see if we can find some dates here. There's almost no way. This has no punctuation after it. Really? Okay. Alright then. Oh, no. I don't want to. If I can't text search the freaking thing for one of the terms I just look for, that's not good. There, GA. Why didn't I find GA then? It's right there. GA. Delhi's supergroup is considered 1 to 0.76 billion years. 760 million. Here also, maybe. Okay. Yeah, so that's an anomaly that I need to look into and try to find a better explanation. Like, for sure, it was a pre existing sink. Like, the concept of describing it as a sink is fine. I just don't understand why it doesn't show evidence that it brought material from this process with it when it was sinking the material into it. Sinking energy. Energy was flowing into it. So why did it not cause any evidence? That doesn't make sense. It's certainly I gotta look into this way more than I just kind of figured it would be geologically proximal and makes sense enough that when it's beyond Cambrian, it really starts to be like, okay, dude, what's going on here? Okay, well, that's what I got now, so I thought I'd share. And I'll be back sooner or later. See y'all later.